All right. You want to take a question?
Sure. Good morning. We'll call the meeting of the Sustainability Council Committee regular meeting to order February 5th. And can we start with a roll call? Or
Committee member Megan Harmon, absent. Vice Chair Eric Friedman.
Here.
And Chair Kristen Snedden.
here. Thank you. Then, do we have any questions or anything about the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting?
Nope.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Move to approve.
second.
All right. Do you want to do all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Minutes pass. Next item is general public comments.
Is there any general public comment? Seeing none in the room, we'll move on to item 4.
So item 4 is going to be presented by Jennifer Hollywood. This is your Own Your Impact campaign that the Sustainability and Resilience Department is taking on. So I'll hand it off to her for presentation.
Hello, good morning. Again, I'm Jen Hollywood and I'm an outreach coordinator in sustainability and resilience. And I am introducing you to our Own Your Impact campaign, which we are soft launching in February and will kick off in March. So first we have a little video that will introduce you to it. Will it play? Have you tried playing it? We also have audio. There we go. So, like it said, Own Your Impact is all about like simple actions and personal accountability for helping make Santa Barbara more sustainable, helping to combat climate change. And so the way that we're implementing that is we're running currently, it will be a 10-month campaign. So we're inviting people to join the challenge and they'll sign up through our website. And when you sign up, then you're committing to getting once a month communication from us. We'll be sending a newsletter each month. Each month we'll have a different topic and the newsletter will incorporate education related to the topic. And then we'll invite them to make a pact, which goes with our impact. And they'll click on that and it'll take them to a form where they can fill out and kind of make their pledge to that. We also have personal accountability built in. So once they finish the first month, the second month's form will also kind of ask them, you know, did you follow through on these other things? There's kind of a reflection question with each one. So it kind of just rolls through and keeps that accountability going for the rest of the year. And then we'll be having incentives, and one of those is little digital badges that they can earn that they can share and post on social media. We will have branded ads throughout the city. Pretend that that little thing lines up because it didn't translate well, but so as you can see, our branding is very kind of bold and eye-catching, bright. We've kind of deviated from our original sustainability branding for this because we really want it to be impactful. So we're hoping to do some bus ads, and one of the ideas is the open storefronts, like see if we can incorporate putting some things in those windows and utilize that. We have incentives each month, so we're going to be doing things like gift cards to local Clean Creeks businesses, leveraging some of our other programs for that. Hopefully doing some partnerships with local businesses to get them involved too. And then we'll have swag to kind of give people and help them stay motivated to participate. We're hoping to really make this a community program, so people can sign up individually, but then they can also sign up as a school and participate as a community group. We're hoping to leverage like our neighborhood improvement committee and try to get as many people involved. You're welcome to try and get your district involved. You can sign up as a district or as a representative of your district and really kind of push that. It's really just a way to really just make that connection of the individual decisions once coupled with the community decisions and choices all really make that big impact. We're also going to be doing pop-up outreach. So we really want to get ourselves out in the community and making that connection with people, inviting people to sign up on the spot via QR code, handing out t-shirts if they do sign up, that kind of thing, really just kind of being out there and meeting people face to face. And that's pretty much the overview of the program. You can go ahead and scan this QR code and sign up right now. And we also have buttons here if you would like to help advertise our program for us. Here, I see. Did it work to scan? There's buttons. You can take one and pass them around.
It worked.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Are you giving this presentation to any other advisory committees? I think the youth council would really think it was great.
Yeah, so there, I think you guys are meeting with them next week.
Yeah, it's involved.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else?
And the idea behind this, just to add on to what Jen was saying, is all the personal accountability, but also we get a lot of feedback that people don't know this department exists. And so it's one way to get that PR out there, you'll get people engaged. So Jen's done a tremendous job putting this together, yeah.
Are we good for comments? All right. This is fabulous. And I think one of the things I really love about it, I just this week taught my class that IPAT equation is impact equals population times affluence times technology. And then there's all these impacts, but then people don't know, well, then what do I do? And I love that it's called owning your impact and then the really concrete ways to go about it and the campaign. And thank you. This is, I'm really excited about this.
And each of the actions for each month, we've tried to keep them relevant, but also general enough so that homeowners can participate, renters can participate, children can participate, you know, just really keeping it as open as possible to anyone who wants to participate.
And then I assume there's Spanish language.
Yes, everything will be done in Spanish and then we'll have, we'll be pushing that out in both languages. And really just, we really wanted to keep it attainable. And also, like I said, this initial push is a 10-month challenge. Everything will be converted to evergreen content onto the website and will be expanded out to potentially be a 12-month program later. We just had kind of time constraints with other things we were doing. So it will be something that people can repeat each year and add more actions in and decide if they want to have the personal communication with us or if they just want to pick something each month. So it'll be really adaptable going forward too.
Really excellent.
Oh, and we've also, each of the monthly topics, we've kind of correlated with other like International Recycling Day kind of things so that we can leverage those things too to kind of build momentum each month.
Love it.
No, thanks for the presentation.
Thank you
And-
for letting me come on.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. So it's gonna kick off in March.
Now, officially, March will be the first month of communication, so February is really our month to just push people to participate and get engaged and sign up.
And are you tracking like any or is there anything where people can put what they've done to track it so that we can get metrics and see if
Yeah,
if we
so,
are in that, like a year from now, we can see we've reduced X number of water bottles or whatever, something like that.
So the initial sign up is a Microsoft form, where we take in some question. One of the things that we ask them, because we're making it optional to give us more personal information. So giving us your address is optional, but if we do have it, we're gonna plan to send out like postcards, to keep people motivated, potential prizes, things like that. But we're also asking their neighborhood / district, so that we can also kind of see where our participation lies throughout the city. And then each month they'll fill out another Microsoft form. And so we'll be able to track which actions they committed to and which actions they followed through on. So we can have that over the span of the whole
Okay.
program.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay,
You want to open up public comment just because I see something?
yes, is there any public comment on this item? Okay. Great.
So I think we can wrap up our agenda item 4. Next, we have agenda item 5, which is the Santa Barbara Airport Climate Adaptation Plan Draft Adaptation Measures. So I hand off to Jessica Mesker to kick us off.
Great, thank you. Before I get started on our presentation, I just want to let the council committee know that this project was funded in part by 2 grants from the Coastal Commission, so I'd like to thank them. And we knew about those grants and were assisted in getting them by the Sustainability Department. So thank you very much for that. We started this project in 2023. And so we're here today to give you a summary of our vulnerability assessment, which has already been completed and is the foundation for what you're going to see today. We'll present you some draft measures and hopefully get some input. The scope for our climate adaptation plan was really looking at those adaptation measures that can help us with the problems that we're having with flooding at the airport now. Part of the grant is also to make sure that what comes out of this climate adaptation plan is policies that will be incorporated in our coastal land use plan, which is part of our larger local coastal program for the city. So I'm going to go briefly over the climate vulnerability assessment. So when we looked at the climate vulnerability assessment, we looked at flooding, both current and historic. And we looked at the assets that we have at the airport. So our consultant mapped every asset that we have, both buildings and electricity, telecommunications, manholes, pipes, etc. So everything was mapped to see where the flooding was most impactful. Flooding history started at the Santa Barbara Airport a long time ago, way before it was an airport. In 1860, Caletus Slough was basically this whole parcel that you see on the screen in the middle of the images. And it was filled in completely. It used to be an open estuary. It was filled in by rains of 1860. It rained for 3 months straight in Santa Barbara and across California, actually. And so that filled in a lot of the slough, creating some of what it is now. Other events, of course, happened also with the creation of the airport. But you can see pictures of flooding that have happened since the airport was there from 1995 all the way to when we started this plan in 2023. And as you know, we've had 3 closures in the past month and a half as well at the airport due to flooding. For sea level rise scenarios, we used most current scientific guidance from the Ocean Protection Council. This is something you're probably familiar seeing. And we really focused on that intermediate high. And then for climate change, when we started this plan, we actually had called it a sea level rise adaptation plan. Once we started collecting the data and doing some modeling, we realized that this area is most immediately need of adaptation measures because of flooding, because of the San Ynez Mountains and those 7 watersheds that drain into this large slough area. And that increase in rainfall is really what we needed to focus on in the immediate term. We still looked at long-term sea level rise as well, and you'll see that in future slides. So this is our precipitation modeling. So if we have an event that's 7.5 inches, normally it would close the airport every 20 years or so. With the modeling of increased rainfall, that closure would increase to every 5 years. So this is a serious problem for the economic viability of the airport. Also looking further in the future, by 2090, with 3.3 feet of sea level rise, this is what tidal inundation looks like. It's dire.
Yeah.
But that's a while, and that's doing nothing. That's staying with the status quo, which we're not doing because we're creating this plan. And so this is a map of our facilities with our vulnerability assessment. I'm not going to speak a bunch on it now because we have a lot of slides to get through, but if you're interested in our vulnerability assessment, we have presentations on that specifically, and everything is online. I'd be happy to talk more about that as well. Oh yeah, and so, sorry, I didn't practice the transition. So these are the areas of most concern. You'll see where the orange circles are to the top. That's the northwest quadrant. That's where we're having the most immediate problems with flooding. And so these are our timeframes that we're using for the plan. For immediate next steps, it's now. It's actually on the ground at the airport right now. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So next 5 years. And then we also have near term, which Amber will be focusing on, which is the 5 to 25 years. And then also mid and long term. Our goal of this adaptation plan is to maintain or reduce flooding frequency and impacts. And so that's what we're keeping in mind throughout this process. Once again, as I said, we stay with the status quo. It's not good. So every time we create an adaptation measure and put it into place, we'll be reassessing those mid and long-term adaptation measures because these immediate and near-term condition changes will change those long-term and mid-term adaptation measures. So right now on the ground, the county flood control district just finished their dredging of the sediment basins at the bottom of Tecleotito Creek, where it comes into the airport property, as well as Carneros Creek, which is pictured on the top right. In 2024 or 2023, late 2023, we installed, or no, 2024, sorry. We installed the Carneros Creek K-rail temporary barrier. So you see that on the bottom right there. We studied this option as a temporary way of keeping Carneros Creek from overtopping its dam. It was partially successful in these last storms, but due to circumstances that happened more upstream, it wasn't fully tested the way that it was studied to be put into place. On the bottom left, you see the orange kind of pipe. That is called a tiger dam. It's a dam that's inflatable and then filled with water to hold Firestone Channel from overtopping its banks at Firestone Road there. That's right by our air traffic control tower, that picture. And then in 2023, we started a drainage master plan that assessed all of our drainage infrastructure at the airport, including outfall pipes, manholes, culverts, any infrastructure that's running underground, basically, and let us know which were functioning at a high level and which needed maintenance or repair. So we're also going to be doing that immediately, looking at those most immediate problems with the drainage and addressing them. And then ongoing and planned adaptation measures are also in effect. Taxiway Bravo extension is shown on the left. So that's the purple area there. It is a Federal Aviation Administration safety project. So it's called out in our 2017 master plan as a necessary improvement for aircraft safety. But it also includes some habitat restoration to the north of that slide, which could be tied with increasing basins for flooding. We also have partners that work with us in the Goleta Slough, including UCSB. They recently got a grant for a really exciting project that's shown on the right of the slide here, highlighted in yellow. They're looking at a tidal restoration project where they're removing a tidal gate and reintroducing tides to an area that's been closed for quite some time. And then on a larger level of the entire Goleta Slough, which spans much further than our airport parcel, there is another group that's working with a Coastal Conservancy grant to look at resiliency projects and which ones are most immediately needed for helping with resiliency of the larger area. And so I'll hand it over to Amber and she'll go over our future adaptation measures.
All right, let's get into those. So we have measures that are in Goleta Slough and the creeks, but we also have measures that are on the airport AOA area, the airport operations area. So, and all of these that I'm going to explain first are all near-term measures that we're focused on. So I'm not going to speak through them all, but I'll just have you understand that we have like two different columns, two different bins that we're focusing on. The first one we're looking at is Carneros Creek flood management, doing a berm on the south side of the channel. The berm would replace the temporary K-rail that Jess was explaining, and the berm would have enhanced habitat along as well. And this could be like a beneficial use of sediment. And this is like something that would aid in the prevention of the runway flooding. But there are constraints, like there will be for every one of these measures. It may increase flooding offsite if you're making a barrier to the flooding, and it could conflict with that Taxiway Bravo extension project. The next one that we're looking at along Carneros Creek, and you'll notice that Carneros Creek is a pretty big focus right now for the airport because most of the flooding does come from that northwest quadrant area in Carneros Creek because of the buildup of all the sediment in the channel because of that, for a number of reasons, but partly because of that big elbow swing and the sediment gets clogged up there and in the bridge a little bit north on Hollister. So the opportunity here is kind of twofold, but it could be a floodplain creation on that north side of the channel. And creating a floodplain there by lowering the elevation, you're creating an area for the floodwaters to go, like a storage area. So it would lower floodwaters elsewhere. And another part of this could be to expand the channel and make it maybe more sinuous or something. And that would also provide more flood conveyance, an area for sediment deposition. There's a maintenance yard that's in the top right. You'll see in that right picture, and that possibly we could relocate that maintenance yard. There's constraints here as well. Portions are already mitigated, like that area that was shown in the Taxiway Bravo on the north of Carneros Creek. There's a bit of mitigation there. So we'd have to work with the permitting folks to figure out a way that would be mutually beneficial. And then like all other adaptation measures, they all would require a feasibility assessment with hydraulic modeling of this slough area.
What are the black triangles, rectangles? On the right.
Black rectangle.
line.
Oh,
it's
the
a
dotted line. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And the blue line is just waterways. Okay, the next option that we have here is detention basin. So instead of a floodplain, you would still be disconnected from the creek, and it could be a detention basin at location for floodwaters to temporarily be distilled there and potentially pumped out or flowed into the creek. So this would also provide flood storage and reduction of flooding on site. This one would also need to be coordinated with the taxiway B extension project and the prior mitigation area. And of course, it requires feasibility assessment. Okay, we're gonna step off of Carneros Creek and look at Goleta Slough as a whole. This figure just shows the hydrologic connectivity currently around the slough. So right now, there's areas that are disconnected tidally and that are connected tidally. There's areas that have been restored and haven't been restored. So for example, the purple area was the one that Jessica was explaining, that is that potential project, because that area used to be tidal and then it was closed off by a gate. So any area that isn't tidal now, there's a possibility for flood reduction, because if you're opening it up, you're letting the floodwaters spread out and you could lower the floodwaters on site. So I'm not going to go into all the nitty gritties of this figure, but just knowing that there's disconnected spots and there's spots that are connected and there's adaptation measures there are possible. Okay, so one of the things, a bigger thing we could look at is removing or breaching the remnant levee. So when they cut through and made that channel, there used to be a bunch of little channels, but then they channelized it. And when they cut through, they took a bunch of that sediment and then pushed it up on the slopes. They didn't bring it all, like truck it all elsewhere. They put it up on the side, which made like obstruction for the floodwaters and for the tidal area. So there's still seepage, but there's predominant obstruction there. So an opportunity here is to remove remnant levees or breach them. And that would also increase flood conveyance, lowering the flood levels and the duration of flooding.
So those are just earthen levees?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And in the Goleta Slough Sea Level Rise and Management Plan, we laid out a few berm tidal areas in there, and this opportunity could enhance habitat. So it's multi-benefit restoration. You're enhancing habitat, creating wetlands, but you're also lowering the flooding, the flood duration, the flood height on the airport property. But there are some prior mitigation areas, so you'd have to work with permitting and folks to figure out opportunities and kind of like meet happiness halfway there. All right. This is a measure that that's had a pilot project in Seal Beach, California. And they've been using it more on the East Coast and different places. It's called thin layer deposition or sediment augmentation. What they do is like squirt out a slurry of water and sediment onto the wetlands to raise the elevation of the wetland. And that's a way to combat sea level rise, to kind of keep up with your habitat, because a lot of these habitats we'll see is with sea level rising, it changes the habitat type, and some of them will go to like mud flat instead of being like a high marsh or salt marsh. And by adding on the sediment, you're protecting the marsh in a way that if sediment is not naturally getting to those areas, you're able to raise that elevation and help the habitat. Let's see. So the opportunity here is because there is dredging in the channel. This is something that could be possible, especially if you still have those berms on the side of the channels that's not allowing the sediment to spread out. But still during really large events, you see the whole slough is wet and there is sediment depositing. So this one also would definitely need a big amount of modeling and sediment transport modeling to understand the future dynamics of the system before we would get involved with this.
Are you using local sediment then from the berms to redistribute it in a thin
It would
layer? Is that
Probably be local sediment that's in the channels.
Oh, okay. So it's not, you're not bringing in sort of outcomes. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it clayey or do you know? It's like it's
So at this point in time, council member, the sediment that we're pulling out of Carneros Creek right now, some of it's coming from the flood control basins is very sandy.
Okay.
Because they have maintained their flood basins yearly for a long time. But the sediment that the airport is pulling out of the Carneros Creek channel is very organic. It had bulrush and cattails and other vegetation in it. And so right now it's dewatering and the organics are hopefully slowly going to fade away, and we'll have to silted, or what's the word?
Screen.
Sieve,
Mhm.
screen it
Filter it.
to get that organics out, then it would be sand.
Okay,
Because it's
Thank
coming
you.
from the Santa Ynez Sandstone Mountains.
great.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
thank you.
naturally in the system, the sediment would come down from the mountains and be spread out.
Mhm.
So I think any material, like, I don't know for sure, but most material that would be coming down from our mountains should be available to use unless
Mhm.
it was contaminated.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, so here's another measure. It's the Firestone Drainage Channel Flood Management. And with this one, there's a few different pieces involved. One is clearing the channel of Firestone Ditch. And then another option is raising Firestone Road. And again, another option is having a drainage channel and detention facility. So another detention basin where it's called out as proposed facility. And that would be at the end of the runway there. And then a possible pump system is needed, if needed. So there's also been prior mitigation in the channel. They've grown different oaks and species there, so we'd have to be careful with the dredging in that location. Though it is an area that we've seen that builds up with a lot of sediment and causes flooding. That's where the orange tiger berm is along. Another constraint here for detention basin is the depth to groundwater. So you'd have to be like very careful with the depths. And there's FAA requirements for anything that's around the airport property, for example, like safety areas, object-free areas, grading requirements, and drainage for wildlife. So they have a 48-hour drainage requirement for birds. So that waterfowl wouldn't be sitting there for too long and cause what is it called?
Plane strikes.
Plane strikes. Thank you. Okay, so just like I was mentioning with groundwater.
Mhm.
So groundwater's shallow in this area. This on the right is Cosmos modeling map. So this hasn't been ground or field tested with boring logs or anything, but it's generally known that with a 0.8 feet of sea level rise, the red areas are emergent. So your groundwater's at the surface. So in that area on the north there, you have about a 0 to 3.3 feet until you reach your groundwater table. So the opportunity here would be dewatering or raising your grades in low areas. And I didn't mention, but now we're in the AOA measures. These are all the airport measures since we've been at Firestone.
So this is the modeled result at 0.8 feet
Yes.
of sea level rise, and
Correct.
that's, and the Cosmos model, that's consistent with our sea level rise.
Yeah, this is like,
adaptations.
this is the Cosmos modeling results.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, the next one we'll look at is storm drainage improvements on the airport property. So the big one here is to convert the storm drain network to a pump system instead of gravity fed system. And this would reduce the on-site flooding by improving stormwater conveyance. You could also put in detention galleries under non-airfield pavement. So these are like detention basins that are enclosed. But of course, there's the constraint of the high groundwater table and there would be feasibility needed. So I'll go a little bit more into those proposed pump station locations for the storm drainage network. So every red dot would be a proposed pump station. The colors are showing the different kind of watersheds of each of these pump stations. So the green would all go to that pump station, the left there, and that would all pump the water from a bit of the northwest quadrant on the west taxiways. And then the pink one would actually do most of the operations areas in northwest quadrant. The green, the darker green's a bit smaller, but then the turquoise there would pump out water from the different areas on the southern as well as the terminal. Okay, and next one, yeah, sure, let me go back.
So
Big one.
is there risk of mobilizing contaminants in the groundwater or the subsurface if you're pumping and moving groundwater around there?
It wouldn't be pumping the groundwater, it'd be pumping the surface water.
Just the surface
Mhm.
water,
But
okay,
that
so
could
this
still
isn't.
possibly have contaminants from.
It's
Yeah.
just getting our normal stormwater through the pipes faster.
Okay,
It's
just
all
off the
still flowing
top.
in that direction.
Okay,
Mhm.
this isn't ground, it's not the
No,
groundwater.
this isn't the
Okay.
groundwater,
I
yeah.
was mixing the dewatering of groundwater, okay.
I have a question on
Sure.
this. So if we implement this, this is the near term measure, right?
Mhm.
Until 2050? Is that right? So what happens when sea level rise goes higher? And I assume this would have a lot of cost for infrastructure, but then as sea level rise goes higher, then wouldn't the water level raise up so you couldn't even pump it out?
Mhm.
So this would be something that we would only have a useful life of till whenever the tide or the sea level rise goes up. So, or would you have to redesign it afterwards?
I think that's what they mentioned. We have to reevaluate as we implement these as to the impacts for the future, but I can tell you right now, just with king tides, some of our outfalls are already underwater. And so that is already affecting us. So yes, and then it is really a short-term, near-term
Mhm.
project for existing flooding. But then as we go forward, all of these measures combined will all help each other. So
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it would be implemented at the same site as other adaptation measures, perhaps at the slough mouth to help with the tides increasing.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions on this one? Okay. Okay, this one is kind of a known utility upgrade, so it would be flood proofing electrical conduits. You would do a wastewater inflow and infiltration study and a inventory of the pipe material and corrosion risk assessment to upgrade those utilities. Next are flood proofing measures. So in the pictures on the right are all different examples of flood proofing measures, flood walls. The bottom left picture is in the airport operations area. This is a building that has a very short flood wall already implemented. And then the other pictures are of different locations. I think this one on the top right, the top two photos are from the northeast. They have this flood wall that's along a conveyance and the flood walls come up as part of like an electrical mechanical structure. And then they form this flood wall maybe right before your flood event, and then they can come back down. And then there's a hydraulic flood wall that's in the bottom right that could be like lifted. And these are all temporary or permanent. And the constraints would be, you have hangars and other infrastructure that need to be at ground level. Another constraint is anytime you're putting in a flood proofing measure, you're displacing flood waters. So it's really important that you look at the flood, how it's moved elsewhere, which other areas is it raised? So you'll have to do a lot of hydraulic modeling to figure those things out. Okay, now we're gonna go on to midterm and long-term. We don't focus huge on midterm and long-term, but we'll give you an idea, kind of a glimpse of what we would be looking at next. So in your near term, that's when you're gonna go ahead and reassess the conditions and improvements that you've made. And that's in the next 20 to 50 years at around 2050 to 2080. So you'll reassess those conditions and then refine your midterm plan. But some of the options could include exploring upstream flood detention and modifying the airfield by incremental pavement lift. Here's an example of what it looks like to have the incremental pavement lift. When you do raise the runways, there's so many FAA requirements on slopes and grading. That's why we wanted to show you the picture on the right. If you raise one spot, you have to raise many spots to meet these requirements because the airfield needs to be pretty flat.
And I should say, with measures like this, we also had a sub-consultant who is an aviation expert who worked on our master plan that we're completing right now to help with the airfield categories like this that we need to be aware of.
In the long term, similar to the midterm, we would reassess those conditions made in the midterm and refine a long-term plan. The long term we're looking at is between 50 and 60 years from now, between 2080, 2090 and beyond. And at that time, you could consider the costs and impacts of the following: protecting the airport in place, a regional flood control channel system, elevating airport infrastructure, regional air service solutions, or relocating the airport as a last resort. All right, recommended next steps. I'll hand it back to Jessica.
So we started this project without knowing exactly what was out there as far as data that we needed. And once we really got into it, we realized there's more that we need to complete the next steps. We need modeling that's done for the area that's current. We don't really have a lot of great data. So our next steps are looking at hydrologic analysis and modeling to confirm that these measures would even be effective. We also want to get conceptual plans and cost estimates for 3 of the measures. We worked with our Santa Barbara staff, including our engineers, to select those 3 measures. And then we also need to continue to work on that drainage master plan that we completed on implementing those measures. So the one we selected for costing is the most immediate. This is everything to do with Carneros Creek, which we're out there now on the ground with cranes and equipment. So looking at that wetland restoration and the permanent berm, as well as the possibility of the basin at the end of runway 15. And then the next steps will be estimating those costs and then preparing the draft and doing public outreach. And then flowing out of this plan, we will have those policies for the update to the airport local coastal program. And that hasn't been updated since 2006, so it's in need. And then we are hoping to move forward with a new contract that looks at the feasibility and effectiveness of the study and further modeling. So thank you very much for letting us do this presentation to you. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have in the public.
Do we have any public comment on this item?
What do hydrological analyses, like, what does that include for areas like the, Santa Barbara Airport, like what exactly is done to measure stormwater impacts?
I can answer this. So hydrologic modeling, so we usually call it like hydrodynamic modeling. So we'd have like a big computer model. And what we put in there, all the different characteristics of the land. So we'll have the elevations and the soil use. And then we'll have the different water coming down at different storm events. And we'll also have the boundary condition of the ocean, different tide levels or storm events as well. And so with all of that together, you get to see over time, like what the different elevations and extents of the floodwaters will be. And then, so we'd have an existing model that we would build of what the site looks like now. And then we would have a proposed model where we would put in, maybe we would do 1 measure at a time. So if we want to try a flood wall around the side of the airport, we put in the flood wall. And you could see how the extents of the flooding and the elevation of the flooding would change. Yeah. I could geek out on modeling.
Yeah. Do we have questions, comments?
Most of this was at the airport commission, you know, some of it just again is as we go with the blanking here. With the fixed base operators and then the new parking and all that, as we basically have new infrastructure out there, so it's not permeable anymore. We're taking that into consideration and all those things that came up out there. And then I am interested in, again, understanding if we do implement these, how long do we estimate they'll be good for some of these? Because if it's a huge investment and it only gets you 5 or 10 years, then that should be the part of the cost benefit analysis on that as well, is what's the time frame that we would expect that this would work in relation to sea level rise coming up. And like you said, we're already experiencing some of it, and it's the same thing that we're dealing down with the harbor as well. And then the other component, I think this was covered at the airport commission, was not just on the airport itself, but it's actually getting to the airport for the public around there for the areas that flood, because it's not just on the runways, it's accessibility too. So how does all this, when you redirect the water, how does that go? It's got to go somewhere. And if the airport's open but nobody can get there, that's another issue we need to make sure that we're addressing. So otherwise, a lot of great work, and appreciate all the technical analysis and everything that's going into it.
Thank you, Councilmember.
And then I had a question about the Omicus or how, I mean, of course, you have to, the trout take all of that into account.
The fish
too?
passage?
The fish
Yes.
passage,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
There's different regulations of like the velocity of streams
Mhm.
and water height and sediment height.
Yeah.
And that would be covered, council member, by our permitting process.
Okay.
Mhm.
We would have a lot of agencies involved in that. We have Corps, we have CFW, we have the coastal commissions.
Mhm. And also there's Chumash
Mhm.
research, too. Okay, yeah.
Yes, and actually, we've had Shumash interested in consulting with us on this project. So they have been reviewing these plans. They reviewed the sustainability, I'm sorry, the CBA, and they're reviewing these as well.
Excellent. I think that's really important, like throughout the process, like you're doing. That's great. And this, I love the way this dovetails in the same sort of format with the sea level rise, vulnerability assessment, and then adaptation plan. And it sort of has those similar metrics, and that one figure that you had where it tied back into, you know, this year or this amount of sea level rise already, but then emphasizing that it's really the flooding that's the immediate issue.
Mhm.
So it's, I mean, it's really important to have that whole vulnerability assessment. And then I think what I'm hearing is that there's needs to be more assessment of the vulnerability before moving on with the plan, or is it more assessment and modeling of what the plan might be?
That's right.
That's
Yeah,
right, okay.
Second one
Okay.
of the different measures.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Amber, excellent presentation. Thank you. Yeah.
One more.
Yeah.
Comment, sorry, it just something came up. Have we, for funding for this, have we engaged the airline industry as a whole? To see if there are opportunities, because it's in their best interest to contribute to some of this rather than just having city or government funding? Because it is a partnership with them.
It is kind of interesting how our funding works at the airport. Just in very general terms, we bring in all the revenues for the airport and our capital projects, our whole budget. And whatever we don't make up for in our normal fees, the airlines are responsible for covering. So they do in some way fund all of these projects. But we have to be very careful because all of that affects different metrics for the airport. One of them is called cost per enplaned passenger. And as that cost gets higher and higher, then we are less competitive with our neighboring airports. And they might choose not to serve Santa Barbara because we're just too expensive with all these projects and other things that are on there. So it's a balance.
That's a good point. I didn't realize that. And then I also assume there's dozens or hundreds of other airports that are going through this as well. So if they open up that box for us, then they'll open it up across the country. So
If it's not sea level rise or flooding, it's blizzards and
Yeah.
other things. So yes.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel good about this.
But yes, we're really
Awesome. I know.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jessica and Amanda. Next on the agenda is agenda item 6, introduction to the Local Government Climate Alliance and discussion of city participation. So I'll hand it off to Eloia Rento for this. Do you want to pick her or?
Sure, yeah. Good morning. So this is a quick introduction. We got a lot of intro items today, to the Local Government Climate Alliance. I have the mission statement on the screen, sort of summing up the work of the alliance, but, I'll read it for you real quick. The LGCA unites California cities and counties to advocate for bold, equitable climate policies at the state level. We leverage joint advocacy, knowledge sharing, and collective influence to accelerate action that delivers benefits to local communities across California. How did we get here? So legislation on climate, and particularly energy and the energy affordability sector, as well as the linkage to housing, has grown exponentially in the last few years. We're seeing it just take over. Both Senate and Assembly have already announced that energy affordability is their #1 topic for this year. And it just became really clear that these things are moving at a rapid pace at the state level. Additionally, impact of climate change and the benefits of climate action are felt in our communities, and we are the practitioners implementing the strategies to combat climate change. Additionally, last year, we had the disappointment of AB 306, which was the REACH code legislation, basically barring local governments from having bespoke building or zoning codes. And that was a huge galvanizing moment for cities attempting to do climate action because it basically kneecapped us. There were some success from AB 306, and that was because those cities and counties were galvanized, a lot of feedback was given to the state. And though the legislation eventually moved forward, significant exemptions were placed in the legislation that does now allow cities like Santa Barbara that have wording in their general plan to move forward with REACH codes. So it really proves the concept that I'm about to go through with you. And thank you to Assistant City Attorney Heather Minter for all of her help on that. We additionally learned about some similar alliances in other states and modeled this after that, particularly Colorado has had a lot of success in uniting across their state to push forward pragmatic climate action legislation. And we have spent a lot of time, the cohort that is putting this together, socializing this across the state of California. We have a couple of guiding statements, and that primarily is that local governments lack a strong unified voice in Sacramento. That has been very clear and was just solidified by the AB 306 response. That our local lobbying capacity is limited and stretched thin. The city did, for example, hire Townsend last year, and they've been really effective at getting sort of across the board city interests move forward. We saw the earmark announcement yesterday. That's great news. But for energy and climate legislation specifically, they just don't have the capacity to meet our needs. And it was really falling on staff to bring it to them for further guidance. We have proven as cities and counties that climate solutions work at scale, right? If we can move the needle locally, then it's scalable statewide. And that we can amplify influence if we work together. We also believe that real world experience strengthens our credibility and direction at the statewide level, but we need to make sure that that is understood by the legislators and that a coordinated platform enables us to proactively engage with legislators and move climate policy forward. We also strongly believe that state climate policy works best when we are at the table and informing that policy. And then these are the policy principles, meaning like the things that are informing the platform that the Alliance is moving forward. And so that is, related to funding, workforce development, all the adaptation measures that our, Melissa's team is working on, removing barriers for local clean energy. We've actually seen a lot of barriers imposed. We've seen some conflicting legislation with state goals. And then obviously improving housing affordability and all the climate nexuses. I don't know the plural of nexus is, but is there. So, there's a lot of ancillary benefits to pushing pragmatic climate solutions forward. So the near-term focus of the group is energy affordability. We cannot decarbonize without energy affordability because we cannot leave a large population behind or make it harder for them by forcing them to decarbonize at a more expensive rate. So really looking at expanding local access to renewable energy. One of the biggest linchpins you've heard me talk about is the interconnection process. We can't even build it. So how can we supply it? So that is step one. Advancing community-based energy programs. The third-party programs are under attack by the PUC and the investor-owned utilities, saying that is what is creating bill increases. That is categorically not true and has been disproven. So local governments are fighting against that. Strengthening accountability. I think this is really where the rubber meets the road at the legislature, which is how the investor-owned utilities recoup their dollars and at what rate of return is critical and also influences their decision-making. Scaling the investment in the electrification workforce. If we continue to have a workforce that is scared of electrification, doesn't understand electrification, or thinks it's inherently more expensive, we will not meet our goals. So clearly we need to work on that. And then modernizing the interconnection processes. So we have a lobbyist. They cost $61,000 a year. And then City of Santa Barbara is the fiscal sponsor for this. So we took a step. We could not find a local or an existing California network that could take this on. Cal Cities, for example, is too broad. It wants to be everything for everyone. This was very specific and intentionally the vanguard cities that are at the front of climate. There are a number of other networks that just because of their status as a 501c4 cannot. fund a lobbyist. And so the city of Santa Barbara took it on as a fiscal sponsor. Other cities are paying us to participate.
Okay.
It's a very creative and out of the box solution. It's not the long-term plan, but for now, just to get it going, this is how we did it. And again, thank you to the city attorney's office for being exceptionally creative and willing to work on this very unconventional arrangement. Eventually, those dues would go to hiring out the outside coordinating staff, not city staff. These are the local government, or the membership dues by local government population. So we created these short-term action plans throughout the last 6 months. We pretty much hit it all in 2025, which was really, creating the governance structure. How would decisions be made? How would cities get engaged? How are we educating on the legislative process? Because that was the very clear first step, was that no one even knows how to engage at the legislature and at what point.
Yeah.
Like, right, this is sort of a black box experience up there. And so teaching local government staffers how to even engage or when things are happening. We hired a lobbyist. We already have had trainings from that lobbyist to local governments, and are moving forward on some key initiatives that have already been submitted to the state. And we're going to continue working on that in 2026 and getting that formal membership put together. So we just launched the membership piece 2 weeks ago. And we currently have the cities of Cupertino, Mountain View, Palo Alto, San Francisco, San Luis Obispo, us, obviously, Santa Cruz and Santa Monica engaged, and the counties of San Mateo and Santa Cruz. We have about 20 additional cities going through this because everyone's going through their budget process right now. They're working their way through their approval process, whether it's at their sustainability committee, their full council, or their city manager level. And so we're really excited. We already have 5% of California on board and are looking at about 20%, which would be right where we want it. So this was just to let you know that this is happening and to leverage it as you see fit. It is meant to complement the city's existing lobbying efforts and complement our legislative committee and be a tool for the city to use. And also to coordinate and build that power with other jurisdictions who have some really aligned.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, thank you. Questions, comments?
One thing I'm glad we're doing this effort, because it is important in Sacramento to have a lobbyist, but by the numbers, is having the capacity and the timing is right, since we have the leadership is Central Coast in both chambers of Senate, obviously, and even in the Assembly. So just being able to have these issues front and center and then tie it into our other legislative efforts is great. And hopefully our county will come along, but I think they have some budget challenges right now. So but hopefully we'll get the county of Santa Barbara on soon. So just appreciate all the work that's going into it and the opportunities that it'll present us going forward.
Yeah, so just a couple questions. Who is the lobbyist?
It's a DeVoe Berg group, and we have worked with them through our CCA work. So they're they're focused heavily on energy.
Okay.
Another thing that we really liked about DeVoe Berg group is that they're working with a lot of AI companies. And so we liked the nexus that we'd be able to converse with those organizations, because that is a driving force of a lot of the energy sort of scarcity question marks. And so having that part of the lobbyist is clearly, they have a wall between
Separation.
the two, because we may not always be aligned, but we have the relationship to like meet and confer, and they're really interested in that. So that's great.
Okay. And then I really like this model, and I think it's well worth the expense. I mean, I'm thinking of like, COMB or, CCRB, and then how much money you pay for a lobbyist for a very small impact. And this has potential to have a huge impact. And you mentioned trainings. Are there also trainings available for elected leadership, of like, when do we engage with other elected leadership, and how the timing and how to do that?
I'm so glad you brought that up. One of the things that has come out of the socializing across staff was wanting to have sort of a lobby day, but not at the state, at the local level, where local electeds could get together, hear about what LGCA is working on and the why behind it. And so that is a goal. It has not yet been scheduled, but we,
Okay.
great to hear that you're interested in that.
Oh, I think it would be
Mhm.
so helpful because often, and I know this like again at CCRB, and then it's, you know, when do we engage? How do we engage? And then we hear a lot of times from our sort of higher up electeds that they're not hearing from us enough, or they don't know what it is we support or are looking for. And so I'm so excited about this and that experience. And thank you for what you've done in the past with Townsend. They're so effective, but every time we have updates from them, we have to add back in, well, what about all of these environmental issues to be looking at the same time? So I love that this is a complementary track with that too. So, and very proactive. So, really appreciate this. And so when do we get our first sort of this particular update on what we're working on?
So one of the deliverables of the lobbyist is a monthly digest. One piece of feedback we gave them, and this is true, I think, of both Townsend and my experience with Devober, is that they give it in the language of the state, which again is just not the language we speak at the local level. And so they're going to be creating a monthly digest, if you will, of the key legislation that we're following, where they are in the process, other sort of highlights of what's happening at the state that might be aligned with the policy principles that you saw. And we've really pushed them to make it like dumbed down is the wrong word, but you know, layman friendly. Simplified, thank you. And so that's one deliverable. I'm happy to pass that along to all of Marion Council. Or
Fantastic.
Committee, but yeah. And then we will be meeting as a membership with them bi-monthly, and I'm happy to report back at these sustainability committee meetings, just sort of an update of what's happening.
Great.
And obviously, I think the legislative committees, I think Barbara's planning to have it meet twice a year instead of once a year. And we can
That'd
always
be good.
provide an update, so it's easier.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other? Nope. Okay.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is the sustainability by the numbers presentation, also being given by Aurelia Parenta.
This is just a really fun wrap up, that just wanted to give you how the sustainability program, ended the year. The dish pit program that we run, highly successful. We avoided over almost 3,000 place settings. So that's plates, knives, forks, spoons,
Yes.
and over 4,000 coffee cups. So that's a mountain of trash, you can imagine. We hosted our first community yard sale last year and had 112 signups. We're doing it again this year in June. And that was really successful. We got really good feedback from people. So we will do that again. We started our textile diversion program in partnership with Goleta and the county, and almost 18,000 pounds of textiles were diverted from the landfill. About 25% of that was resold, which is great. And then the rest was recycled. And that is with only one drop-off location. So one of the big things that the team's working on this year is trying to expand where those can be dropped off, potentially even at thrift stores, since they're likely a lot of who is throwing textiles away. 65 bee swarms were relocated in the public right of way. And this is only one of several bee programs the city has. So I'm sure there's more than this, but we just like this stat. We ran a pilot over the summer in partnership with Dune Coffee, where they already give you 50% off of your coffee if you bring a reusable cup. We funded another 50 cents on top of that just to see if that moved the needle, and did a lot of outreach, and 17,000 single-use coffee cups were avoided. As part of that, we also funded these clay cups, which can be reused and also put through the organics program. So that was great. And we are building on that. We're participating in the coffee culture celebration that's being held at the Marjorie Lick Theater in March, which is bringing together all of our local coffee roasters, and hoping to do some work with them there. And then keep going with this pilot. One of the things that we're trying to collect is data on what moves the needle. This is one of our big items in our waste characterization study that gets put to landfill. 13 city projects generated over 6 million kilowatt hours. That's over, I want to say 3,000 California homes for a year.
Wow.
So very significant. And we continue to add to those projects. We've got Plaza Veracruz, the little house there is going to get solar this year. The new police station obviously is zero net energy, which is really exciting. And the waterfront just got a solar array on the Maritime Building, so that's great. Through Santa Barbara Clean Energy, we purchased 346,500,000 kilowatt hours of mostly carbon-free electricity. Some of it wasn't because of our opt-down customers. They received 50% renewable. But that was provided to almost 40,000 customers. We launched the Smart Ride program this year, which replaced the city's existing work trip program. Smart Ride was designed to provide more options to more people and provide a direct financial incentive. So it pays city staff up to $5 a day for a round trip alternative transportation. And we had 92,872 single occupancy vehicle miles not traveled, which is excellent. Yeah, reduced. It was a great reduction in emissions right there, and we had almost 10,000 Smart Rides taken by staff. So excited to expand on that program. And that was 1 quarter. That was only one. Thank you, Renee. She's right. It's only 1 quarter. It launched in September. Very important point. Just over 1 quarter. We have been delivering on your promise to the community to reinvest the Santa Barbara Clean Energy dollars right here locally, and have doled out almost $500,000 in incentives through the Res EV program, which does residential electric vehicle purchases or installation of chargers and associated electrical work. Also launched the HEAP, Home Electrification Accelerator program this year, which provides incentives on heat pump water heaters, and very recently launched on AC heat pumps. So home heating and cooling. So that's really exciting, really successful, getting really great feedback on that too. And they're expanding next year. So you'll hear about that, I'm sure, in April. We had over 500,000 B-cycle miles ridden this last year. We surpassed 2 million in the program since its inception, which is a huge reduction. If you assume that even half of those replaced a single occupancy vehicle trip or any vehicle trip, we have a significant reduction in emissions right there. So this program has really shown to be successful. We've had 26,000 electric vehicle charging stations at the city-controlled EV charging stations. There's obviously more than what we own and control, but that has all leveraged carbon-free energy from Santa Barbara Clean Energy, which means that we've reduced emissions significantly there through those programs. We launched our advisor program. We spent a long time trying to find a third party to provide this service for us and just couldn't find one we liked. So we trained in-house. Ms. Lopez Lozano is one of our advisors who provides Spanish speaking help for heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, electric vehicles. And we've had 51 callers called since this launched in the summer.
What's the phone number?
It's just our phone numbers.
Just your phone numbers,
No,
okay.
it's actually Stephanie Holmes'
Okay.
phone number, and then that gets directed over to who needs to be.
We can provide it.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be calling.
Yeah, perfect, great.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have both Stephanies working
Okay,
on it.
okay.
And then John.
Okay.
We calculated through all of the stormwater. I know we hear a lot of griping about the storm program, but this is to show you what impact it has. Through all of the projects that have been implemented through the private development process and the public development process, over 50 million gallons of stormwater captured. So it has a massive impact, not only on pollution going to the ocean, because there are significant, because of the way rainfall happens in Santa Barbara, a lot of pollutants collect on our impervious surfaces and then get shed to our watersheds and oceans. You know, this has a tremendous impact. Plus on flooding, because most of the projects are infiltrating and detaining that water. So really just re-emphasizes how important the stormwater management program is. Through our neighborhood cleanups, we've cleaned up 529 tons of litter. These are really fun events that the community really gives community ownerships. We do them by neighborhood and invite that local community to come do the cleanup. We provide donuts, we provide all the equipment. Hillary Allen does a tremendous job with these, and obviously it's paying off. We launched a brand new program this year in April that trying to be proactive on stormwater measures. And so we've launched the stormwater rebate program, which provides rain barrels, funding for bioswales and rain gardens, and looking to expand that. And 45 of those have been reserved since April. So, and that's with pretty minimal advertising. So looking to really keep building on that program too. We got $8.64 million in grant funding, most of that going to expanding B-Cycle to lower income neighborhoods and providing free memberships or heavily discounted memberships to lower income qualified customers, and to installing more electric vehicle chargers around city facilities. Through our residential street sweeping program, we swept over 10,000 curb miles. Again, this is has a big impact on pollutant load when stormwater happens. And so this is a great program. And our outreach
increase, or is that an increase or decrease, or is that sort of like
it's pretty
the
status quo.
yeah.
In fact, because we had so much rain this year, I'm going the wrong way. Oh, that way. Because we had so much rain this year, there was actually less sweeping days because we don't sweep when it rains. But I think it's pretty status quo.
Okay.
Our outreach team does an incredible job, as you saw through the Own Your Impact campaign, but they have also done a great job increasing our email newsletter subscribers. Almost 50,000 subscribers across. We have several newsletters, and so that's great. And we are social media followers. We have a new hourly social media person, and she's increased our followers by 20% this year. So she's doing a great job. And we've tabled or hosted at 32 community events this year. So again, the outreach team is really getting the word out there. That's most of the battle, to be honest, is we can have these incredible programs, and if no one knows about it, they aren't very successful. So leveraging that outreach team has actually been the cornerstone of a lot of our service delivery. And that is the end of that presentation. You're welcome to provide comments or move straight into topics and
There's I like this.
Infographic.
I like it's like everything that was in here, so it's like I'm like following along the PowerPoint, but on here it was the same.
Yeah.
No, it's just great. There's so much that's going on, and I guess the hard part is letting in the information overload that everyone has, all the different things. But I think you're doing as good a job as you can, going to the events, going social media, but it's outstanding. And when you're looking at, I mean, you tie it into the Own Your Impact, go full circle when you're 17,000 fewer coffee cups going in the landfill. It just all ties it into circles. So just well done, and continue the great work and see where it goes.
I would just echo, I mean, incredible. I love having like actual metrics of what difference it makes. And just a note back to the original sort of branding of this whole department and how it carries through in everything. It's so pleasing every time, like the social media things, they really stand out as, oh, that's from sustainability department, and how everything just is so friendly and accessible and sort of fun, but also really serious because it has the numbers and the metrics, and I've just really appreciated all the way through the attention to that detail and everything. And love that there's somebody to help in-house, because there are so many programs and things and people wanting to get connected and don't know how. And I think too, tying it to the Own Your Impact, I'm sure there will be like connections through to that, but this is just, I mean, continues to be amazing. Just the whole vision and carry through of this department, because you could just rest on your laurels and be like, yeah, we did some cool things, but it's like constantly pushing forward to what to do more, so thank you. Thank you.
And then before we move into the next topic, just to update you, in March, we have, I think, the ecological framework coming back. That's the
Yay.
plan. There's some,
That's big.
work being done across departments to bring back the proposal to you. So hoping to bring it in March. And what,
Biodiversity.
the biodiversity resolution is coming in March to you. Ms. Minter just finished her review of it. We're good. And potentially the Marburg fees is coming for.
That's good, because I have some things to say about that, which we'll talk about when it's agendized, but
So that's what's coming in March, and in April, a CCA update likely, and
And potentially a climate adaptation plan update.
Yeah.
Okay.
just so FYI, that's what's coming.
Some big
And I
items.
assume you'll work with the garden, make sure they're here for
Yes, they
the
are.
next month meeting, yeah.
and then can you just give us an update on where the make polluters pay?
Yes, thank you.
Is-
That is, we really like the idea of coupling it with the waterfront adaptation plan as sort of a next step. It's, I think, going to come as two separate items. Because what we don't want to confuse the public is that we're not making a decision on the waterfront adaptation plan when it is brought to council on March 10th. It's more of a, here's where we are and where we're going.
Mhm.
And we will bring a second item right after, that
Mhm.
is the adopting the resolution of the make polluters pay. But the way
Okay.
that the staff reports read, it looks like you're making a decision on the first, so we're gonna separate them
Okay.
out.
And what was the date of that again?
March 10th.
On March 10th, okay. Thank you.
That's coming here on March, next month.
The
Council, okay.
Council.
Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, that seems like enough to be working on right now, as far as I'm concerned. Do you have any?
It is
I don't
really
have any
helpful
more.
to get input because there are some months where we have less.
Mhm.
So we just, Ms. Lopez Lozano just keeps a list of those, and that is helpful, but if you have nothing today, that's fine.
Mhm.
I got nothing.
We're good.
So with that.
Oh, of course.
I was actually gonna ask, is there any way to do any further on research to the resources talked about today? And the other services talked about today and like ways to like find one, like. Is there like an online resource to like go over the topics that went over at this meeting today?
I know we don't typically respond to public comments, but can we?
I think after, yeah, I think.
Can you respond? We can ask you to respond.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
great. We do have the Sustainability Committee webpage that has all this information. If you are looking for the presentation, we can share that with you. If you reach out, my email is on there. If you want to get into like the nitty gritty of things, again, you can reach out to me and I can connect you with the actual project managers for each one of these. It just kind of really depends on like where you're trying to delve into and I can help direct you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the website
And
too
the-
has
and a lot of.
a lot of this
detail.
stuff.
Thank you.
Oh, I have one more comment. I didn't get a button.
Oh, can she take that? Sorry, we'll get you a bet.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay.
I know, I was like, we'll hand it out.
Yeah.
We'll get you a bet. You got a bet? We'll get you a bet.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I think with that, we are
All
adjourned.
right.
Oh, when is our next meeting?
Should be March 5th.
March 5th. Okay, thank you.
All right. February's exactly 28 days, so the days of the week line up, February, March.